Welcome to The Inner Wonder. I'm Alex and I'm your host.
Hi thinkers. It's Christmas Eve and 12 o'clock. An elder said as we sat in a flock by the embers in a hearthside ease. That's not my words. This is the poem Oxen by Thomas Hardy. And this poem brings about a meaning of Christmas that really touches how I feel about Christmas. I often wonder what really is Christmas. I understand fundamentally it's supposed to be a religious celebration of Christianity. But nowadays, it really seems that it's far from that. Some people would call it a celebration of consumerism. Really, sales go up. Some others would call it a time to go back to the fundamentals, to go back to your family, back to the people you're close with, to celebrate love, to celebrate getting togethers. Some others, on a more sad note, as for them, it might be something lonely, in a way that life has brought itself on us. The truth is, whatever Christmas is to you, there is something that touches when we talk about Christmas. Thomas Hardy brought this poem up in 1915, in what it was back then the first great World War, where there was sadness, there was anxiety, there was death. It was a mess. And in that spirit, and there was Christmas, which is supposed to be the opposite of what I just described. It's the birth, it's love, it's coming together, it's happiness. The poem Oxen by Thomas Hardy has two phases. In the first phase, he describes the situation of the innocent children, and it's kind of mocking the children because essentially he treats the children and symbolizes them as oxen, as sheeps, and talks about them as a flock where an elderly asks them to do something and they just follow, they just do what the elderly said without questioning. And the poet is at that time somehow mocking the children for just following without even thinking, without doubting, just like sheep, what the elderly have said. He goes on to say, "We picture the meek, mild creatures where they knelt in their straw pen. Nor did it occur to one of us there to doubt they were kneeling then." Meaning that none of the children thought, why are we kneeling? Why are we just following what the elderly said? So the poet takes a bit this approach of making fun of the innocence of the children. Then he goes on to say, and that's where part 2 comes. "So fair a fancy few would wave in these years. Yet I feel if someone said on Christmas Eve, 'Come, see the oaks kneel.' In the lonely garden by yonder combe, our children used to know. I should go with him in the gloom, hoping it might be so." So what happens in the second part is a feeling of nostalgia from the poet. Seeing what's happening in the world right now, in a world of adults, the poet misses that feeling of innocence that he was mocking in the first part. But in the second part he comes to say, "Oh, how I wish I would go back and just follow what the elderly said without questioning." And why does the poet misses that level of innocence that the children had, or the children still have. The reason is that oftentimes when you enter adulthood, reality kicks in and removes that beautiful innocence and naivety that we have as children, that oftentimes help us grow and reach places we never thought we would, because we believed in a dream. And although it was written in the middle of a war, and it talks about all these sad emotions and how the poet misses that time where there was just innocence, he hopes that this Christmas will bring this miracle back. When I ask myself, what is Christmas? What does it really mean? I think for every one of us, it's somehow hoping to get part of that childhood back. It's a feeling of nostalgia of the emotions that we have from the past. It's about connecting. It's about getting back to the fundamentals of what we had. It's about reliving experiences of the past. And often it leads to disappointment. Other times, it's simply impossible because we've lost the people, or the situation just does not allow us to relive those emotions. And there comes a lot of nostalgia and the sadness of holidays because we're incapable of repeating the past. But the fundamental question for me and for you thinkers is, why do we need to come back to the past? And why do we need Christmas for that? Why can't we do it on a daily basis? Why can't we remind ourselves on a daily basis of what we dreamed as kids? What do you think, thinkers? In another episode, I talked about The Little Prince and how I believe that every adult should read that book. And it just tackles the same question of adulthood versus childhood. And there is some fundamental ideas that were happening in our childhood. The idea of naivety and the idea of dreaming for something greater. And the idea of just belonging, just being in the moment, that we so much struggle nowadays as adults. So whatever Christmas means to you, whatever Christmas might bring to you and whatever you're hoping to get out of it, happy Christmas, whatever that is.
Until our minds meet again, enjoy the inner wonder you're creating. Thanks everybody. See you next episode.